Okay, good afternoon. The time is now 12:01 p.m. and I will call the meeting of the District of Columbia Board of Ethics and Government Accountability to order. I'm Norma Hutcheson, BEGA Chairperson, and due to COVID-19, this meeting is being held virtually via WebEx. Joining me today for this meeting are board members Melissa Tucker, Felice Smith, and I don't see Mr. Nottingham or Mr. Sobin, but presumably they will join us later. Okay, but the three of us constitute a quorum for this meeting. I ask that you please take a minute to review the agenda, and then I'll entertain a motion for approving the agenda.
I'll offer the motion
Okay,
to adopt the agenda.
is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting with the, okay, we're going to need to take a real close look at this before we pass the motion. We act on this motion because items 5 and 8, which call for an executive session and then re-entry into the regular meeting, don't need to be on the agenda. So could you revise your motion or withdraw that motion and then put a new one on the floor, please?
Okay, I'll withdraw that motion and offer a new motion to adopt the agenda, omitting items 7 and 8.
Yes. Okay. So now is there a second to that new motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Now it's been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting, subject to the removal of items 7 and 8. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Next on the agenda are the draft minutes for the meeting of July 14th, 2022. Please take a minute to review those, and then we'll need a motion to approve those meeting minutes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the July meeting minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Madam Chair, I think you're on mute.
Oops.
Good morning. Sorry, I was a little delayed putting in the wrong password. Apologies.
No problem. We are about to vote on approval of the minutes for the July 14th meeting. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and I will note that Mr. Nottingham has joined us. So now we have 4 of the 5 board members present. Next, we have a report from the Office of Open Government. Director Niquelle Allen will provide a report on behalf of the office, and she is appearing virtually via WebEx. Director Allen, please proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I am Niquelle Allen, Director of Open Government, and I am pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Open Government, or OOG. Since the last board meeting, OOG has continued to fulfill its mission of ensuring that all persons receive full and complete information regarding the affairs of the district government and the actions of those who represent them. I will begin by updating the board on the Open Meetings Act and Freedom of Information Act advice provided by OOG since the last board meeting. The first is advisory opinions. On August 1st, 2022, I issued advisory opinion number OOG-2022-003AO. The advisory opinion made the following findings and conclusions regarding the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs implementation of the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. First, under DC FOIA, the DuPont East Civic Association is within the other use category of requesters. Second, the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs may only assess reasonable standard charges for document search or duplication for other use requesters. DCRA's assessment of document review fees to the organization violates DC FOIA allowable cost provision. And fourth, DECAA qualifies for a fee waiver under the public interest exception because disclosure of the information is likely to contribute significantly to public understanding of operations or activities of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs and is not primarily in the commercial interest of the organization. And the next item is informal Open Meetings Act and FOIA advice. Since the last board meeting, OOG responded informally via email or telephone to requests for assistance as follows. OOG responded to 12 requests for Open Meetings Act advice. OOG responded to 4 requests for FOIA advice, and we responded to 29 requests for technical assistance with our website, open-dc.gov. The next item in my report is remote meeting monitoring. To ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act, OOG attorneys attend remote public meetings and inspect public body websites and the OOG central meeting calendar for public meeting notices and public meeting records. We provide legal advice on Open Meetings Act compliance and take corrective action if necessary. During July 2022, OOG attended 19 remote public body meetings. As a result of the monitoring, 15 instances of written corrective measures were taken, including the following notifications. 1, that the end of a public meeting agenda must state this meeting is governed by the Open Meetings Act. Please address any questions or complaint arising under this meeting to the Office of Open Government at opengovoffice@dc.gov, and that included a citation. Second, that the OMA requires public bodies to provide the reason and DC code citation for entering into closed session. And third, that public meeting notices and meeting records are missing from the public body's website or the central meeting calendar, and that the OMA requires timely posting of these items. And we also provide a citation for those issues. The next item is a report on the office's training and outreach efforts. First, the American Society of Access Professionals, or ASAP, 15th Annual Training Conference. On July 19th through 21st, ASAP held its annual training conference in Arlington, Virginia. Attorneys DeBerry, Orji, and Weil attended the training. The OOG staff participating in the following sessions and panel discussions. Update on ASAP certification, a panel of FOIA professionals who lead combined FOIA, privacy, records management, and information governance programs. Basic refresher track, the Privacy Act of 1974, scope, disclosure, and requirements. What to expect in FOIA litigation. Basic refresher track, Privacy Act, individual access to records. What is new in FOIA case law. Advanced track, skill for success. Defining of federal records, innovations in state law. And I'll note I was supposed to be a presenter for that on behalf of the district, but I did fall ill and was not able to perform that duty. And the next training was the role of the Office of Information Policy. The next is the requesters. Also, they attended the immediate advanced track, FOIA exemptions 5, 6, and 7C, the privacy interest. The next one was FOIA exemption 4 is proprietary. They also attended the intermediate advanced track, FOIA privacy sister statutes, FOIA and privacy interface. They also attended other specialty niche track privacy routes, SORNs, and PIAs. The Presidential Records Act of 1978, Exemption 5, it's a privilege, and the federal agency breakout sessions. The next item is the Civil Justice Review of the Supreme Court's 2021 term. On July 23rd, 2022, Chief Counsel Barton attended a seminar with the Antonin Scalia School of Law, Law and Economics Center. The focus was, quote, the focus of the review was on the most important civil justice related developments that occurred in this past term that are so critical to everyday operation of the courts, to our understanding of the jurisdictional reach of the courts, and to the health of the economy, end quote. And the next item is the Office of the Attorney General, OAG, ethics training. On July 27th, 2022, Chief Counsel Barton and Attorney Orji attended the OAG's Attorney Ethics Training Session. Hamilton Fox III, Esquire, Disciplinary Counsel for the District of Columbia, was the presenter. Open Government Advisory Group meeting is next on July 27th, 2022. Attorney DeBerry attended the Open Government Advisory Group meeting. The meeting was convened to discuss Freedom of Information Act recommendations to approve the DC Freedom of Information Act. The next training is the Microsoft 365 Workshop Series. On July 28th, 2022, I, along with Chief Counsel Barton and Attorney Weil, attended the first of a series of workshops using Microsoft Office 365 applications. The Office of the Chief Technology Officer trainings will focus on tips and best practices for collaboration, as well as share helpful resources to enhance productivity. The next item is Open Meetings Act training for the Office of Administrative Hearings. On August 2nd, 2022, I presented an Open Meetings Act training to the Office of Administrative Hearings. 12 staff members, including the Chief Administrative Law Judge, M. Colleen Curry, attended the training. The training covered the provisions of the Open Meetings Act and practical advice for ensuring OMA compliance. Chief Counsel Barton and Attorney DeBerry also attended the training. The next item is OMA training for the Civilian Review Panel. On August 2nd, 2022, Chief Counsel Barton presented an Open Meetings Act training to the Civilian Review Panel, a public body within the Child and Family Services agencies. The training consisted of instruction on the Open Meetings Act, examples of special circumstances to consider in meetings, and practical advice for OMA compliance. The last item in this section is mandatory online harassment prevention course for supervisors and employees. On July 12, 2022, Attorney Orji completed the harassment prevention for U.S. Employees Office course, and all DC government employees must complete this course by September 30th of this year. The update regarding the open government related litigation and legislation is next. First is litigation. Terrace Plavic Millen LLP lawsuit regarding preliminary budget documents is the first item. As I have reported previously, the TPM lawsuit alleges that the district's failure to produce and post online various budget-related documents violates DC FOIA proactive disclosure provisions. On July 28th, the Court of Appeals set an oral argument date for September 28th. Also, as I report in the legislation section, the DC Council has recently enacted legislation to clarify that Category 6A of affirmative disclosures, certain budget request submissions and reports are not exempt per se. The next item is Washington Post FOIA lawsuit regarding records that arise out of the Capitol riot or insurrection. The Washington Post legal entity, WP Company LLC, is seeking certain records from the District of Columbia regarding the Capitol insurrection. The Superior Court has continued the parties' mediation session to September 21st, 2022. The amended scheduling order is in the Dropbox, and OOG staff will continue to monitor these cases. The second item here is legislation, and the first is the Agency Budget Request Freedom of Information Act Clarification Emergency Amendment Act of 2022. On July 13th, 2022, the mayor signed the fiscal year 2023 Budget Support Emergency Act of 2022, which is DC Act 24-470. This measure includes a subtitle that amends DC FOIA to clarify that Exemption 4, interagency or intra-agency memorandums or letters do not cover certain budget records created on or after December 7th, 2004. The corresponding permanent measure, DC Act 24-492, was signed by the mayor on July 25th, 2022, but awaits congressional layover. The signed version of the Emergency Act and the enrolled version of the Permanent Act are in the Dropbox. The next item is the Structured Literacy Action Plan Act of 2022. The Permanent Budget Support Act will include an Open Meetings Act implication. Section 4114 requires the Office of the State Superintendent of Education to create an early literacy education task force no later than December 1st, 2022. But the statute expressly provides that the task force shall not be considered a public body for purposes of the Open Meetings Act. There's no express rationale for this in the legislative history. The Enrolled Act and related documents are in Dropbox, and the OMA language appears on page 67. OOG staff will continue to monitor legislative activity. And the next is the federal FOIA update. OOG issued a FOIA advisory opinion on June 29, 2022, that discussed the mayor's large backlog of administrative FOIA appeals. We recommended a legislative enlargement of the processing deadline for the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. On July 22nd, the Federal News Network provided a summary of annual Freedom of Information Act reports released by the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Information Policy that revealed a federal backlog of administrative FOIA appeals as well. While the total number of requests to federal agencies increased by 6% in fiscal year 2021, and the backlog grew by 8%, the backlog of administrative appeals dropped by almost 7%. Federal agencies had a backlog of 4,734 cases at the end of the fiscal year. Although federal agencies have more time to process administrative appeals than the MALC, there is also a backlog on the federal level. Federal administrative appeals are allotted 20 working days or 30 working days in unusual circumstances. However, the MALC has a firm statutory deadline of only 10 working days to do the same. OOG will continue to monitor the federal appeals backlog as we continue to monitor the progress of the MALC in addressing its backlog. And the last items I have to report are administrative matters. The first is a paralegal specialist position. I am pleased to report that the Office of Open Government's employment offer for the paralegal specialist position has been accepted, and we look forward to welcoming our new paralegal to BEGA by the end of the month. The last item is the BEGA website redesign meeting. On August 2nd, 2022, BEGA met with representatives from the Office of the Chief Technology Officer about redesigning bega.dc.gov. Present at the meeting were myself, Director Cooks, Senior Attorney Tran, and IT Specialist Bridges. The discussion focused on the proposed redesign of the current website. OOG, as I previously reported, is primarily looking to migrate its advisory opinions, memoranda, and other documents to the bega.dc.gov site using FileNet or a similar solution to make its files searchable and more user-friendly. The aim is also to make more room on open-dc.gov for the central meeting calendar and related documents. This concludes the Office of Open Government's August 4th, 2022 report. Thank you for your attention, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Director Allen. Are there any questions for Director Allen? None. Thank you very much for a very thorough report as usual. I will note that board member Sobin has joined us. So all 5 board members are here for this meeting. Next on the agenda is a report from the Office of Government Ethics, and Director Cooks is also appearing via WebEx. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Hutcheson and members of the board. I'm Ashley Cooks, the Director of Government Ethics. I'm pleased to present this report on the activities of the Office of Government Ethics, OGE. First, an update on the status of OGE's operations. The information reported today regarding OGE's cases will not reflect any status changes that may occur as a result of actions taken by the board during today's meeting. First, open investigations by status. We have 49 open investigations. Next is open undocketed matters. We have a grand total of 6 matters. Next is pending state investigations by status. We have 27 matters that are closed pending collection, 4 matters that are stayed pending DC Superior Court case, 6 matters that are stayed for OAG False Claims Act case, 5 matters stayed for OIG investigation, and 1 matter stayed for a U.S. District Court case, for a grand total of 43 stayed or pending matters. Next are regulatory matters by status. We have 22 matters that are closed pending collection and 10 matters that are open, for a grand total of 32 matters. We currently have 49 open investigations and 16 matters that are stayed. The number of open preliminary and formal investigations includes 12 new matters. The investigative team resolved 9 investigations since the board last met. OGE is working on the quarterly complaint report for the 3rd quarter of fiscal year 2022. It is expected to be posted to the website next week. Next is training and outreach. First is professional development trainings attended by staff. Auditor Emmanuel Tajuba completed the Certified Fraud Examiner course and is now a Certified Fraud Examiner, CFE. CFEs are trained professionals who possess a unique set of diverse skills in preventing, detecting, and investigating fraud. As a CFE, he will have access to world-class anti-fraud training and resources through the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. This certification enables him to build and maintain expertise and stay informed about the latest trends and best practices. Auditor Tajuba also attended 4 trainings. First, expert insights on ethics. Second, positive atmosphere, establishing a positive work environment. Third, running meetings in better directions. And 4, taking actions to empower employees. Investigator Ralph Bradley completed harassment prevention for U.S. Employees Office 1 training and a question and training session presented by our case management vendor, CMTS. General Counsel Rashi Raj attended Writing for Transactional Lawyers 2022. Attorney advisors Millicent Jones and Maurice Eccles are currently attending the 39th Annual National Black Prosecutors Conference in Houston, Texas. This year's conference is entitled Enduring Pillars of Justice, Policing, Penology, and Prosecutorial Discretion. The event includes courses such as How History Will Treat the Progressive Prosecutor, A View from the District and State's Attorney, Chief Prosecutors Panel, United States Attorney's Perspective, and Trial Skills and Techniques. I attended the district's Integrated Financial System Agency Point of Contact kickoff event. The event covered information on the district's new financial system software. I also completed Embracing Microsoft 365, presented by the Office of the Chief Technology Officer. Next is trainings conducted by staff. Since the July 14th meeting, OGE conducted 4 trainings, which included the July quarterly ANC training, the July quarterly board and commission training, the monthly ethics brown bag session, and the August Hatch Act training. Last week, Supervisory Attorney Advisor Stuart Mitchell led our monthly Ethics Counselor Brown Bag session on the misuse of government resources. She gave the ethics counselors a deep dive into what is government property and what constitutes misuse. 32 ethics counselors participated in the session. Our next brown bag session will take place on Monday, August 29th, during which we will present information on the Comprehensive Code of Conduct and the agency's plan to present the legislation to the council. During July, 36 employees completed our online ethics training via PeopleSoft. Next is outreach. OGE and OOG continue to meet with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer's website development staff to discuss the BEGA website refresh. The website refresh will improve organization, searchability, and user-friendliness, as well as the overall appearance of the website. We are currently working on changing the website's design so that information is readily available with minimal search efforts. Last in this section is the Ethics Week 2022. OGE is preparing for Ethics Week 2022. This year's theme is Ethics in Practice, and the event will take place October 11th through the 14th as a virtual event. The event will feature courses presented by OGE and OOG staff, as well as guest presentations and panel discussions by Marcy Maslow, Chief Integrity Builder for eFactor, Michael Brett Hood, owner of 21st Century Learning and Consulting, Kedrick Payne, Vice President, General Counsel, and Senior Director of Ethics at the Campaign Legal Center, and Erica Stillabauer of the DC Bar. A copy of the draft schedule is placed in the Dropbox for your review. The schedule will be posted on the BEGA website by the end of next week. Next is an update on advisory opinions and advice. First, informal advice. OGE's legal staff provided advice for approximately 16 ethics inquiries, which is 38 less than the 52 reported at the July meeting. This number does not include responses that we have provided to questions regarding the lobbyist and FDSE filing systems. Next is formal advice. OGE is in the final stages of editing an advisory opinion focusing on the fundraising prohibition of the Local Hatch Act. OGE is also drafting an advisory opinion that will focus on the prohibition on outside representation, specifically as it relates to board and commission members serving as a representative before the board that they serve on. Next are legislation updates. First is the Pro Bono Legal Representation Expansion Amendment Act of 2021. On June 28, 2022, the mayor signed the Pro Bono Legal Representation Expansion Amendment Act of 2021, Bill 24-0298. This bill will allow employees to provide pro bono legal representation before district and federal courts and agencies, subject to certain restrictions. The act was submitted for congressional review. The projected law date is September 14, 2022. A copy of the legislation was placed in the Dropbox for your review. Next is the Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022. On July 6, 2022, the Committee on Human Services held a meeting on the Board of Ethics and Government Accountability, Delinquent Debt Recovery Amendment Act of 2022, Bill 24-706. The act will allow BEGA, at its discretion, to transfer delinquent debts associated with settlements and judgments for ethics and OMA violations to the CCU for collection, and for the funds to be collected on BEGA's behalf, for those funds to be collected and deposited into the Ethics Fund and OMA Fund instead of the General Fund. The committee voted in favor of the bill and recommended approval by the council. The bill will be presented to the council at the next Committee of the Whole on September 20th. A copy of the committee report was placed in the Dropbox for your review. And the last legislative update is the Comprehensive Code of Conduct. OGE's legal team continues to review and update the Comprehensive Code of Conduct, CCC, with the goal of submitting an updated version of the legislation to the board and then to the council. As defined in the Ethics Act, the Code of Conduct consists of 7 different statutes and regulations with varying applicability. The CCC is legislation that consolidates the district's ethics laws and standardizes the ethical practices between the legislative and executive branches. The goal is to have the CCC introduced before the council in the fall of this year. Next is OGE administrative matters. First, OGE staffing. Director Allen, General Counsel Raj, and I interviewed 5 candidates for the Chief of Staff vacancy. An offer of employment will be made to the top candidate by next week. On this past Tuesday, the Attorney Advisor vacancy was posted on careers.dc and will remain open until September 30th. Next is budget. I'm pleased to announce that in partnership with the Office of the Chief Technology Officer, BEGA has implemented an online fine payment portal, which allows the use of credit cards to pay fines associated with ethics violations and financial disclosure and lobbyist penalties. The payment link is located under the Enforcement tab on the BEGA website and will streamline the fine payment process for respondents and the agency. Since its activation 2 weeks ago, it has already been utilized by a few respondents, proving its effectiveness. Next is Financial Disclosure Statement, FDS. The review of the financial disclosure statements for 2022 season has begun. Auditor Chajuba has requested to review 45 confidential financial disclosure statements. These statements were flagged by the agency's ethics counselors for further review. Auditor Chajuba completed its calendar year 2021 public FDS conflict of interest audit, and these findings are being reviewed by the FDS team. Attorney Advisor Jones and Program Specialist Kozik were currently reviewing the agency's list to identify non-filers and late filers. This process involves reviewing the financial disclosure review reports and reconciliation of the agency's filer list. On July 29th, Attorney Advisor Jones sent a reminder to the agencies that have not yet filed an FDRR. The contractual requisition for the FDS e-file system upgrade has been published and closes on today. This upgrade consists of enhancing login privileges for council members and adding certification language that is consistent with the members' biannual filing requirements. And the last update is lobbying registration and reporting, LRR. The 2022 second quarter activity reports were due on July 15, 2022. On June 30th, the LRR team sent a reminder notice of the deadline to 275 lobbyists. In response, 466 activity reports have been filed using the e-filing system. Lobbyists have also filed 48 new registrations, 5 renewals, and 26 termination reports. Program specialist Kozik has generated a calendar year 2022 second half list of lobbyists and clients for publication to the DC Register. Thank you. This concludes OGE's August 4th, 2022 report. I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Director Cooks. Are there any questions for Director Cooks?
Just a technical one. Can you hear me okay?
Okay. Yes, Director Sobin, go ahead.
Board member, but thank you for the compliment.
I'm sorry, Board Member
It's okay.
Sobin.
It's okay, Madam Chair.
Sorry.
Director Cooks, just as I said, a technical question. With the credit card payments, which is an outstanding idea, who is paying the credit card fees? Are those passed along to the respondent, or are we absorbing them?
So because the system was created by OCTO, there is no credit card fee. It's just an application that has been placed on the website, similar to the application within the e-filing systems. So there's no fee associated with it.
Well, I know the credit card companies always charge something. I'm just curious as to, well, if it's through OCTO, and I'm assuming then therefore the OCFO, they must have it figured out, because you know, if it's us paying the credit card fees for customers, there might be an anti-deficiency problem since we haven't budgeted for that. But if we're doing it, as I said, if we're doing it through OCTO and presumably the OCFO's office, then they probably figured that out. But it might be worth just checking.
Yeah, I will follow up on that, but OCFO has not contacted us about the fees, but I will follow up on that. Yeah. But I definitely know that it's not the respondent, otherwise we would have heard feedback about that already, but we haven't. But I'll follow up with OCFO to find out.
Well, I mean, I know sometimes when I pay my property taxes by credit card, not in DC, elsewhere, the credit card fees show up as a convenience fee, and it's, you know, it's like just a few dollars depending on how much it is. So I don't know if does that show up when folks try to pay it, the respondents?
Auditor to do, but do you have any insight on that question?
Yeah, I looked at, thank you, Ashley. I looked at the payment information, the confirmation that they sent to us. There is no fee associated with it. It is totally, you know, the gross amount they pay, it is reflected on our bank account. So there is no fee associated with that. I know that I checked, you know, from the transactions that we received so far.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Director Cooks?
I just wanted to make a comment. I noticed that Director Cooks, you said that 9 investigations have been resolved since our last meeting, which was only about 3 weeks ago. And I just wanted to remark that that's particularly impressive, and thank you and your team for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you. Thank you, Director Cooks and Director Allen. Next on our agenda is the public comments. The public was invited to submit written comments by 11 a.m. today. And as of 11:01, there were no written comments that we received. So the next item on our amended agenda is a discussion of any remaining items. And I would note that the board's next meeting is scheduled for September 8th, and that's actually the second Thursday, as opposed to the first Thursday, which is the usual time for our meeting. So is there any concern, discussion about moving the meeting to the first Thursday, which would be September 1st, instead of what appeared on the schedule, which is September 8th?
I think that now that I think back on it, maybe it was because so many people were going to be out of town just right before the Labor Day weekend that we didn't want to have it on the 1st. So the 8th is after Labor Day.
Right.
I'm
Any
probably
other-
going to be out of town, but I could call in if you want to change it to the
On the
1st.
8th?
I mean, no, I'll be back on the 8th, but I mean, the week of the 29th through the 2nd, a lot of people I know are out that week before the Labor Day weekend.
Right. When that was brought to my attention, that was my assumption, is that it was scheduled for the 8th because the 1st would be the Thursday right before the Labor Day holiday.
Right.
So if there's no concern about having the meeting on the 8th, we can leave it as it is. It's up to you all.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with either date.
I'm also fine with either date. I think I have the same recall about that discussion.
Okay.
And it would
Well,
also
it
take
sounds
some
like,
of the heat off the staff also, who also might want to be out that week.
okay. All right, then our next meeting will be on Thursday, September the 8th, as in the published schedule at noon. Okay. This concludes all the scheduled business for this meeting. So if there's no further comments or questions, we can conclude the meeting.
Thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
All right, I think this is a record time here. So we will meet after the Labor Day holiday, so everyone have a safe holiday, and we will see you on the 8th.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.